Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, how are we?
Very well, thank you. How are you guys?
We're gresh. And the reason I say we're gresh is because we've just come back from a few days in Noosa. Do you remember that from Kath and Kim?
Oh my God, I think it rings a bell.
Go to Noosa.
Do there lots of white linen?
And they say, oh, that hasn't happened since jojoba in October.
There was a Kath and Kim special on last night, and they did all these little, I don't know what it was about. Probably, I think they're doing something at the minute. And they had all these cuts of, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. They're just like endless cuts of her saying, look at me, come here, look at me, boy.
Funny show.
And Tony's sitting there going, I don't find it funny. I'm like, oh, I do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a bit of a tricky one because I think there was a time when, I think it was when we were overseas because my mum used to send them on like DVDs to me, and I thought they were pretty funny, but then I'd see bits and pieces and it would always be the same bit, and there were a lot of edits done during COVID which I thought were brilliant. But then the other night, just per chance, it must have been on after something else that I was watching, they had the episode where Kylie Minogue was Epony Ray when she was the bride. It was actually really good, and I'd forgotten all about that, and I thought, because I hadn't seen that bit in a long time. I thought, gosh, it was really clever. It was really a moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I'm going to remind you, Swanny, when we were in England, I once said to you, do you like Kath and Kim? And you said, no, it's a bit too close to home for me.
I'm sure I did. That's why I like it now. I don't disagree with that. That's factually, that's so correct.
I thought The Castle was a bit like that. Like, there were bits of it that were hilarious, and other bits I just sat there going, ugh. Too close.
This is my childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have to say that between Muriel's Wedding and Porpoise Spit, not so much of The Castle for me, but it might have been more for a Victorian audience, I think, perhaps in some ways.
Yeah.
That didn't affect me quite the same way. But that, and then certainly there are moments of Kath and Kim where I think, oh, gosh.
Oh, the serenity.
That reminds me of something and someone, and yeah.
The serenity of The Castle always made me laugh.
Yeah.
And when they're driving up to Eldon, and it's dark, and then you hear this alarm, and it's like, oh, that speed camera radar really paid for itself. The number of times my dad got booked going up to Eldon because he was speeding. It was very close to home. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what are we drinking?
Ooh. Well, we've been drinking what seems like. I can't even use my words.
For what seems like?
But for what seems like days. And so I did contemplate not drinking today, but then I thought it would be trial by water again, and I couldn't have that. So we're having a Feathertop Fruilano.
Beautiful.
Which is
what
very
is that?
Delicious.
What's the name of the wine? Not the brand, but what's
a Fruilano?
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Have you heard of a Fiano?
No.
They're similar. It's kind of, I don't know, it's very nice. It's dry. It's
nice. It's different, unusual.
Nice.
I like
it's
it.
different. It's unusual.
It's not Tropicana.
Yeah, I think actually. Let me see if that's exactly what it says on the back of the bottle. Yeah, it's nice. It's different. It's unusual. Oh my lordy, yes indeed, and do da day, Janelle.
Well, similar to you, I have had drinking for days and thought maybe I should just give it a miss. But same as you, try by wine, not try by Pepsi Max. So I'm drinking a Heathcote Shiraz.
Not that it couldn't be trial by Pepsi Max the right price.
That's
That's true. Or coconut
no product
sugar.
endorsement here. No product endorsement here. Yeah, no, I just thought I'll pull it out for the team. So
Hang
there you
on.
go.
I just thought of something. Swanny, were you actually saying that you would change what you drink to Pepsi Max for a price?
Not to be honest. It's funny that it came up. There's a restaurant here that I went to lunch the other day, and I said, oh, can I have a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero or something like that? And I forget every time, and they go, oh, Pepsi Max, okay, and I laugh, and I go, no, it's not okay, I'm good, don't worry about it. And
Right.
I don't know why I think that. In the end, I went, oh,
What would be the price?
Oh, I do it for free, honestly. It's not that bad. I'm not that. I don't I don't like it, and I don't like how it comes with pizzas and that when the kids buy it. It's in plastic. It comes back to my glass
cans,
plastic
yeah.
thing. So so I've just got a lime mineral water. Sorry, guys, I know it's a disappointment.
That's all right. So who are we? I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial
by Wine. And
wonderful.
Mini cans.
So, Swanny, what have you got for us today?
Okay, when I found this little story, I was so delighted because I find it really interesting, and I hope that I can do it justice.
Is it a murder again? I feel like you used the word delighted
Or
once
an
before,
abduction.
and we felt like it wasn't delightful.
Yeah.
She's pretty good on abduction, rape, and murder. Yeah.
Yes,
And getting delighted.
I just this is so bad that there are aspects of it that I cannot believe are real life. That you're just think surely this was like a made-for-TV movie. It is.
You love these.
It's
you
horrendous.
love the ones that say, well, I'm just going to remind you, the other day I'm driving along and I don't know what put it back in my mind.
Yes.
But that case where that poor girl was stabbed so many times in the chest that her heart was sitting on her chest cavity.
Oh.
Now, I don't know how you can get worse than that. So let's buckle up and find out.
Well, I don't take any pleasure in the
actual
criminal part, not at all.
Yeah,
but it's a really interesting story. And the hard part for me is in how I'm going to reveal it. Because for me, the way I came across it was I sort of started at the end and then worked back. But I don't think I can do that. I think I need to sort of start at the beginning. But because of that, it was lots of kind of, oh my God, this is going to be great. I think it's a great story. So I hope I do it justice, doing it in real order.
Dale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get 'em
Okay.
out.
So my sources are, this will come as a massive shock, Wikipedia. ABC News in the US, very randomly, goodhousekeeping.com,
Oh.
allthat'sinteresting.com,
Yes, another
and
fave.
without giving too much away, BuzzFeed.unsolved network, which was on the internet.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you the actual name of the particular episode. I don't know, it was an episode, a mini episode that I saw.
Because that'll give it away.
Otherwise, it'll give it away. The title would give it away. And I've got lots of ideas about what we can title this this episode.
Do you want to share any of them yet, or are they later as well?
Maybe very randomly. I was thinking maybe. Do you remember there was a place? I don't know if you would have had it in Melbourne, but it was certainly one in Sydney called CPK, which is California Pizza Kitchen, which was kind of cool. It was a concept out of the US, or out of California actually, out of Beverly Hills, where it was like kind of sophisticated pizzas. We hadn't had those, and they might have had. I remember having one that had potato on it, and I'd never had a pizza that had potato on it. In retrospect, it all came into vogue and then went out again. Do you know what I mean? We all went back to. But CPK reminded me that might be useful, and also what about a BLT?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you remember when
I know what a
BLT?
BLT is,
But you wouldn't have remembered having a BLT as a child, right? That came in when we were sort of like maybe finishing school, going off to uni.
Yeah.
And, I'll have a BLT. You know, it became the thing.
Oh, I reckon
Now
they were
shots
around in the
BLT.
70s too.
Oh, for sure they would have been, but no one
Yeah.
called them that, right?
Do
No
you recall
way.
them?
Yeah, do you recall them?
I reckon I might.
In the Gong, I would say after I finished school, there was sort of like this moment where small cafe-style dining started really for the first time. We didn't have something like that beforehand. We were either at maybe a coffee shop or a
Macca's.
restaurant. Yeah, and not much between. And that sort of cafe-style dining, and it was when, nachos or wedges.
Oh, yeah, I
yeah,
remember nachos and wedges, with all the sour cream. Yeah.
Tea, avocado was so exotic, but I was like, I might have a bit of avocado.
I
with
reckon
that.
Coles Caf would have done a BLT. They would have done a club sandwich, and I reckon possibly
I reckon
a
a
BLT.
club sandwich for sure.
I
I'm not
don't know
sure
what you're
about a
talking
BLT.
about, but we used to have a Kmart.
I'm not sure what you're
cafe
talking
that's similar.
about.
But the
I have no idea what you mean by that,
sausages.
Clarky.
We had crumb sausages and jelly. I'm not sure. It was
what?
not BLT territory. No.
Right.
A BLT sometimes came on some quite fancy bread too, and I'd never seen
not in
fancy
the
bread.
day.
Anyway, so CPK, BLT, they're the kind of thing.
Not the
Another
Good
restaurant-
Housewife, because
No.
you said you randomly
Good
CPK,
Housekeeping.
but randomly also goodhousekeeping.com. So
No, it was just the little monkeys that I wondered if you'd heard of them. Anyway, we'll just park that.
BTK.
BTK.
what?
How do you know that?
Because you gave it away.
That.
I didn't say that.
Well, you were talking about acronyms.
Is this BTK?
Yes.
I think you did say it, Dale.
She didn't
No, she
say
didn't
it.
say it. No,
Did one
I
of
just
us
know
say it?
everything.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I know everything. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
that. Yeah, sorry. Go on, Carla. I'll edit that out.
Oh, I don't know where to start now. Oh, no. I figured you must know.
I actually don't know the details of it, though, so go right
I've
ahead.
never heard of it at all, which was
No, I
quite
don't,
nice.
Oh, yeah,
guys
you
heard-
don't. This is something it's best to
Yeah.
not have heard of, but
Absolutely.
strap yourselves in.
Okay, so let me introduce you to Denis Rader. So Denis Rader was a gentleman who was born in March 1945 in Kansas in the US. By all accounts, he had a pretty ordinary childhood. I've read somewhere that he didn't have a particularly good relationship with his parents because they were working a lot of the time. But I've also seen firsthand account of his own daughter talking about her grandparents and that they had a nice relationship with them. So I would suggest that he had probably a pretty normal upbringing. And he grew up in a place called Wichita, which I think we've probably all heard of, right? It seems like it's a place that comes up in lots of movies and things that even if you're not American, we're all probably aware of Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
Which, when I looked at it, it is not the capital, but I think it's the biggest city in Kansas. So quite big with suburbs. It's that kind of setup. It's a city with suburbs. So from a young age, however, Denis harbored sadistic sexual fantasies about torturing trapped and helpless women. He also exhibited,
Don't we all?
When you say a young age, do we know how young?
certainly as a teenager, but I'm thinking even perhaps earlier than that, with respect to the way he treated animals, which is slightly different. They call that zoo sadism.
Precursor.
Yeah, torturing, killing, hanging, asphyxiating, small anything, doing terrible things to small animals. And this is all
When
from
you
a
were a
fairly young
kid-
age.
Did you ever mutilate your Barbie dolls?
No.
My
In
sister.
fact, mine never even had messy hair, but that's my problem. That's on me.
the other end of the spectrum.
I didn't
My
play with
sister-
it. We just sat there perfectly the whole time.
My sister used to hang them out off the lemon tree and beat them with a stick. Although, as far as I know, she hasn't
that
turned out to
Hub?
be a psychopath. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that makes perfect sense. She hasn't turned out to be a serial killer,
No.
but I have seen some behaviours that make me go, wow.
It's a
Hub.
spectrum.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think I'm on the other end of that spectrum because I honestly, it's only as an adult that I look back and think that wasn't quite right, Carla. So my dad had built me a doll's house it had real carpet and the wallpaper that sort of reflected our house. It was this two-story thing that sat
How
within my
fancy.
cupboard, so it wasn't even out. Like it was all hidden away, so it looked all perfectly like clean when it wasn't there. And the dolls just sat in there. They didn't do anything. I didn't play dollies. Well, I'd get the doll and I'd go,
They were
she
show
looks good.
dolls.
She looks good. I'll put her there.
Show dolls, yeah.
And when we'd go to other people's houses and we'd like walk through their backyards and there'd be like, dolls.
Barbie
with their
dolls
heads-
hanging off the lemon tree with their hair all cut off.
saying to my mum, oh my God, like who lives here? I don't think anything of it, but I look at it now and I think, that's pretty much who I've always been. Oh my God,
I
who
think
does
that-
that to their belongings? Can't they look after them? But I wasn't even really playing with mine, which is a bit sad, I think.
I think the closest I got to that was scratching the face off the back of
Oh.
someone off the back of the Grease album.
What possessed you to do that? Did you
How
not
sadistic! I didn't like her character. She was
Rizzo?
no, it wasn't Rizzo. She was the one who was
Monica
going out
Maraschino.
with. God, why can't I think of it? She started the race,
Freddie, my
the
love.
drag race.
Freddie, my love.
No, she's awful.
Cha-cha. I can
Danny
say.
and-
Cha-cha something?
Yeah. When we think about
Cha-cha
things that have
Gregorio.
become, when we think about things that are no longer appropriate, Grease is top of my list. That whole thing, the chicks will cream,
God,
in that whole song,
yes.
Grease Lightning, where and Summer Loving, where they say something like, "Did she put up a fight?"
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, I think you mean Cha-Cha. I think she's right. I think
Di Gregorio.
Swanny's right.
Yeah,
Cha-cha Grease. Cha-cha
that's her. Look,
Grease. Oh.
I didn't like her either. She was a little bit too adult for me. She was mature, I thought. The themes were a little bit too mature, and she was a little bit.
Nah, it wasn't her.
not Patty Simcox.
Nah, it wasn't her.
Not Patty. The
It's got to be Marty
Uptight
Maraschino
one.
then. In that case, she didn't like her either. The one who-
Marty. Yeah, Marty's the one who sings "Freddie, my love."
No,
Freddie,
she
my
wasn't
love.
singing
Yeah,
it.
that-
She's
She does in the show though. In the Broadway show, she does.
Is
Sorry.
she the one who she's flirting with the compere when they're filming?
Yes,
that's Marty.
that's
Yeah.
Marty. Yeah. And the
'Cause I had to
compere
be
in
here
our
when-
version was played by Tony, so you can imagine how appropriate that was. There the world's oldest, whatever his name was. God, it was funny. And he could never remember any of his lines. Bless him.
But that's really
Anyway.
naughty because remember, an album cover was considered like it was special. Do you remember when you used to like
Well,
pour
it
over
wasn't
them and
with
read
her
all the
on the back
information?
of it. Yeah, that's what.
No,
and every time I had to see her face, I'm like, oh, stop it. So I had to scratch it
Trouble for
off.
that?
Did I what?
Get in
Did you get
trouble.
in trouble for that?
Nah. No.
What kind of a household did you grow up in?
Well, they didn't like music that much, so
You didn't or they didn't?
they didn't. So they wouldn't
Whose
even
album
know.
cover? Whose album? Wasn't yours?
No, it
All he
wasn't
had to
mine.
do was look at his mum and go, "Don't be busy with me, mum." And she was like, "Oh,
Oh, isn't he sweet?
isn't he a cutie?"
Pushover.
Anyway, we do digress, and I'm glad we get some levity before we go into this story. But go on.
Okay.
You know, sorry, I've just got to say, I'm just going to keep searching because I can't do anything
Can't let this
now.
go.
But
Yeah, okay.
you continue.
For our listeners, Clarkie's now moved to the side of the room and is watching Grease from the beginning. So he can truly remember who it
Immerse
was face he
himself.
scratched off the album cover
And
because
if
he wouldn't
it's-
get it wrong.
If at some point I yell out, oh, it's because I found it. So
Okay.
Okay, so Denis Rader, not so healthy when it comes to
If only he'd had a Barbie doll instead of pets. But anyway.
maybe. He also sort of started acting out sexual fetishes for voyeurism, autoerotic asphyxiation, and cross-dressing. Yeah.
and
Well, he's got the whole
cross-dressing.
gamut.
He was just one of those people who started, spying on neighbours, and he
Did
didn't
he
mind
steal
dressing up
any
in women's
underwear?
clothes, including women's underwear that he had stolen.
Oh, bingo.
Yeah.
Snowdropper. And did he write bad checks, the other gateway crime?
No, I don't know that he did do that. That's something I don't believe he did do. But he didn't mind masturbating with ropes or other bindings around his arm or neck.
Oh,
I get the arm because it makes your hand feel like it's someone else. Isn't that right, boys?
yeah.
At the uni, they used to call that a Barry number.
Oh, what?
Oh, is this one? I found
Barry
it.
number.
I found it. A Barry
If you sit on-
number.
I think if you sat on your hand long enough and then you
What's,
did it was called
what's
a Barry
happened?
number.
What's happened while I've been gone? We
Are you
started
saying
off talking
Barry
about the
number?
BTK killer, and now we're back to Barry number.
There was a whole host of ones that boys used to talk about at uni. There was the Barry number. There was another one called Stranger Through the Window.
Hell?
Hey, what is that?
Do tell.
This is
Oh,
a stranger through the
she's
window.
showing us. She's showing us. I can't see it.
You got to get up higher. I can't see.
Hang on.
Oh, hang on, are you showing us?
Stranger through the window.
Stop sharing.
Swanny has.
Oh!
Stranger through the window.
Do you see it?
Try and describe it. Swanny stood up on a desk and put
Oh,
her
Behind her.
under her thigh up to probably where her genitals are in a closer approximation. And
If
that
I
is
had
a
a penis.
stranger through the window. If she had a penis, yes.
Yes. The only two I can remember a free number and a stranger through the window.
Oh, you've changed my life forever.
We think Denis Rader's weird. Okay.
Oh my god. I tell you, I did get an education at Canberra, that's for sure.
Clarkie has found, I think, some evidence
Okay.
of who his face is scratched
Yeah,
off.
yeah, it was this one
Cha-cha.
That looks
In-
like Cha-Cha.
in the yellow pants.
Yeah, that's Cha-Cha.
She did nothing in the show. She was a waste of space. Right, we can all relax now. You've got my full attention, apart from the stranger through the window and the Barry number.
Very number. And I like that you're doing a yoga pose because I am thinking namaste when you're saying Barry number.
Barry namaste.
There was also one, I don't know if it's the same as the Barry number or if it's like an offshoot. They're all coming back to me now. There was another one apparently, and I don't know if they were just lying and they were making it up or these things actually
they
did.
were.
If you were actually able to complete the task that you were setting out to do, if you were a gentleman. But there's another one that talked about putting a tennis ball under your arm until it went dead. If your arm
It'd
was
be
dead.
the same thing. It's just cut the circulation off your arm so you get a Barry number.
Yeah.
But having said that, if I've sat on my foot for a while and I stand up, I can barely walk on it. I don't know that I'd be skilled enough to complete the task at hand. I wouldn't be like, oh my God. I'd be like, sure, it's like someone else, but I'd be like, oh, you're not real good at it. Your proficiency would be off.
Maybe
surely.
you just don't have the right motivation, and a 16-year-old boy has more motivation than you do.
Yeah, or maybe they get partway through it and go, Barry, you're doing it wrong. And then they have to
Barry.
go back to their own hand.
And Oh, hang on,
goodness.
we'll switch to stranger through the window.
Oh, goodness.
But not from Barry Number through the window. You can't be doing that. That's
No, I don't
way
know if we
too
can cross
hard.
it. That would be very hard. That
What
would be
about the
like
dexterity.
you'd need like a Cert 4 in, I don't know.
Barry numbering
Barry Numberology.
Very numbing.
in masturbatory
Masturbatory
warrior.
studies.
Masturbatory warriors.
studies.
Cert 4 masturbatory warrior.
Yeah.
After graduating from Wichita High School, Denis Rader attended the Kansas Wesleyan University, but didn't get very good grades, so he dropped out and he went off to serve with the US Air Force. And he was with the Air Force for 4 years, from 1966 to 1970.
Did they do a psych test back then?
I wouldn't have a clue.
I wonder.
I don't even think it matters, do they? They just take.
Well, I just feel like he shouldn't have
taken
passed it. I reckon now they would do them.
Well, yes, I'm not sure that his, interests
But that was
were
then.
going
This
to be
is
assessed
now.
at that point. Yeah, so it is quite a long time ago. So when he was discharged from, or when he left the Air Force, he moved back to Wichita, and he lived in a suburb there called Park City.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, darling.
Did you say 1962
No, I didn't. I said
For when
1960. Oh
when he went to the Air Force?
no, 66 to 70.
Okay. So the Vietnam War was on at that time.
Is that right?
And it was, according to what I'm looking at, the period was 55 to 75, right? Actually longer than I
Is it
realised.
that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That's what Google said. But definitely that period. Remember we talked about, I can't remember who it was. Was it the Family Annihilator or someone? Who
Post-traumatic stress.
I was saying that there are a lot of
Yeah.
killers and psychopaths who served in armed forces and specifically the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And here we go. He
Maybe
was a
if I've got a
pilot
look
in
at that.
Vietnam until 1969.
There you go.
There
Back
you
to
go.
the
Yeah.
story.
Well, no, my point is the Vietnam War seemed to produce a lot of nutters. Anyway, go on. Sorry, Swanny.
Swanny's not even about to lose her shit.
She's
'cause
like,
we're
who
taking
cares?
over her story. Yeah, that's right. Let me get back to my story.
I just think that's a really interesting fact.
It is, actually. And it's
yeah.
interesting that it's not mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, so when he gets back to Wichita, he takes a number of jobs. He works in a supermarket and he's just setting his little life up. He also goes back and studies again, I think, at that point. So he goes to a community college where he gets an associate degree in electronics. But then he actually goes to Wichita State University and he gets a Bachelor of Science degree. But that's not all straight away. But I'm just trying to say that he's an educated person. It's not like he's just taking menial jobs or little bits and pieces. He's a pretty normal guy by all accounts. He's done some time with the Air Force. He's come back and he's settled down. And in doing that, he's also met a woman called Paula, who he marries. So he starts dating Paula in 1970, and by 1971, they are married. I think it's fair to say at that time, he's probably already living somewhat of a double life in the sense that his interest of stalking people, breaking into houses, and just basically being a bit of a pervert, existing or coexisting side by side with being seen to be a young married couple. So early on as well, he works as an assembler for the Coleman Company, which is an outdoor supply company. But not long after, he then starts working for the Wichita-based office of the ADT Security Services. And he works for them from the early 70s all the way through to 1988, where he installs security alarms as part of his job.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He was also a census field operations supervisor for the Wichita area. And again, I think, there seems to be lots of moments, lots of opportunity for him to be in people's homes, being in close proximity to people, to see how people live, where
Finding
they live.
out their personal information.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It's sort of, for someone who has an interest in voyeurism, I think that what he does probably sits nicely beside that, doesn't it? Because he has sort of front row seats, as it were, to.
If only it was just voyeurism.
Absolutely. So after he marries Paula, they have two children, a daughter and a son.
Well, we haven't gone into the story yet, but I've just got visions of the children. Imagine if your dad was the psychopath.
Or even just dirty old perv. Dirty old perv.
I'm sure there are plenty of those. This is kind of next level dirty old perv. So in 1974, there's a situation where Denis is driving his wife, Paula, to work. And on his way, he sees a woman and her daughter entering a house. And he thinks, they've taken my interest. And at that point, he starts to stalk this woman and her daughter. And then on January 15th of 1974, he enters their house expecting to find only the daughter and the mother, where in actual fact he finds the daughter, the mother, her husband, and their son. So there is, they're called the Oterio family, and the parents, Joseph and Julie Oterio, who are aged 38 and 33, and two of their 5 children, Joseph Jr., and Josephine, who are just 9 and 11. Denis Rader enters the house and at gunpoint then ties them up and then goes on to murder them. And how he does that is, first of all, he murders the husband. And I can tell you exactly what he does to each of them because they all have a slightly different.
Could you? That'd be really nice.
Yeah, I'm sure you want to know. But I only tell you this, but I won't have to harbour on.
Is
all
this
these
the
details
delightful
that much.
part?
I never have to use that. I shouldn't ever use that word at the outset, should I?
I think I know why you were talking about it being delightful. It has nothing to do with the violence and the horror.
No, it's never anything to do with the horror or the violence.
It's
but
just
there's
the
an
twists
outcome.
in the story.
Yeah, it turns. It's a really interesting story. Anyway, so he suffocates the husband with a plastic bag. He suffocates the son with a plastic bag. He then strangles the mum with a rope. And then finally, he takes the little girl downstairs and he hangs her in their basement. How macabre is that? I mean, really, the effort that he has to go to, and it just beggars belief. So he does that and he leaves. That afternoon after school, the 3 other children arrive home, and in what is, a bit of a mixed blessing, fortunately, when they break into the house because they couldn't get in because it was locked, Charlie, who I've seen interview, only goes and sees the mother and the father. He doesn't actually see his murdered little brother and sister. Thank God. So they go in, they find them on the bed murdered, and they run out to get help. And then, of course, it's the police who actually discovered the other children. So that's January 15 of 1974.
Well, I'm going to pour myself another wine on that note because
You might need one.
I'm a bit traumatised already.
Yeah,
so we'll call
I'm
them
with you on that.
That is victims
awful.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, God, there's more.
There are a few more.
But wait.
In April of 1974, so we're only talking a few months later.
Couple of months later.
January, yeah. He murders Catherine, let me get her name, Catherine Bright. But he murders Catherine Bright by stabbing her in the abdomen with a knife. But her brother, Kevin, is there and he escapes and he attempted to shoot Kevin. But
So
Kevin,
did he break into their house?
I believe so.
Right.
And what I have seen, which I found quite interesting, was, and it kind of starts coming at Wichita was a place that was, I've heard it described as, Americana personified at that time. It was a lovely place to live. People didn't lock their doors. It was, it's in the middle of the country. And by all accounts, it was a lovely place to, have a family and grow up, and kids were riding bikes down streets and going to fairs and doing whatever else.
Yeah, but in 1974, so was downtown Essendon and where we
lots
all
of
grew
places.
up. Like,
Yeah.
life was
It's a simpler
felt
time.
safe. Life felt safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this, obviously the murder of the family, all 4 of them, that really shook the community. And I've seen a lot of the newscasters of the time, who are still around, interviewed, and they say that this started to totally change the face of Wichita because they'd never had anything like this happen before, and it went from a place
But
where
it's
people
also
thought,
really brutal.
oh, yeah. And when that family had been murdered in that way, one of the newsreaders at the time, who at the time was an investigator one, he wasn't the anchor, he was the young guy out covering the story. And he said, I've never been in a situation where when the police came out, they were so quiet. He said the police weren't giving anything away. He said because I don't think they really knew how to deal with the terror of what they'd seen inside, because what they saw inside were people who were tied up, they were bound, the little girl was hung. It was really not this
Revolting.
kind of idea where not that I wouldn't have known how many people were being murdered in Wichita at the time, but it wasn't something gone wrong where someone's been shot and, it's a panic and whatever else. No. All 4 of them had been murdered
Systematically
and
killed.
killed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There'd been time and effort put into their demise on each account. I think he said, the police were shocked in the sense that they didn't quite know, and what should they share? What panic do you want to create? Like it was just, and the family hadn't been in town for an awful long time, I don't think. I think they were relatively new, and people just didn't know, right? What, who, how, what, why. This doesn't happen here. So imagine that. So January 15, we've got the Ontario family, and then April 4th, I can't say her name, Catherine Bright is also murdered. And she was, so they're both in Wichita. So sometimes when I say Wichita, but they're, all within a certain area. So really pretty close in the city. And this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. This is when Denis decides that if he's going to go and do all this work on, stalking and then murdering people, he wants people to know about it.
Oh, what a narcissist.
Yep. At one point, he wrote a letter that had been stashed inside an engineering book in the Wichita Public Library in October of 1974, which described in detail the killing of the Ontario family in January of that year. Now, how did somebody come upon that?
Yeah.
He directed them to it.
Right.
He constantly directed them.
If you had stashed that in the Moonee Valley Library, it's still there.
Really there.
in the engineering section.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
It's still there in 2022. Yeah. No, it's at the Salvation Army and still there because someone's donated it years ago.
50-cent discount bin.
That's right.
I know,
Sorry,
right?
Swanny.
That's fine.
So he said, by the way, you need to go and look in that engineering book.
Correct. So at this point, we've gone, so he's murdered 4 plus 1, and then the brothers got away. And this is when he's like, hey, just so you know, you might want to go and look in this book because I think something there's going to be of interest to you. And he starts sort of courting.
How did he do that?
Press. Letters at this point.
Letters to the press?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So between the spring of 1974, so remember the murders that I've covered have been in 1974, to the spring of 1974 and winter 1977, Rader killed 3 women. So Catherine, who I'd mentioned previously, but then he also goes on to kill Shirley Vian Relford on March 17, 1977, so a little bit later, a couple of years later, and Nancy Fox. And I believe that in between 74 and 77, I think that's when his children were born. Now, with Shirley was only 24. So up until this point, everyone's really young. So we had the couple that were 38, 33, and their 2 children, 9 and 11. Catherine Bright was 21. Now, Shirley is 24, and she is strangled with a rope. And Nancy Jo Fox is 25, and she's strangled with a belt. So he really likes watching people's, having the control and their life in his hands or his belt or his, he likes to strangle people. That's his modus operandi. So 1978, he sends another letter to a television station. The television station is spelt K-A-K-E, cake, which must be Kansas something, K-E, I don't know. In Wichita.
Live.
Cake Live, yeah.
Coming live from Cake TV.
And he claims responsibility for the murders of the Ontarios, Bright, Van Relford, and Fox. So everybody he's murdered, he's basically saying, hey, guess what?
FYI.
I know who did that. It's me.
It was me.
At this point, and this is where I want your attention, he suggested many possible names for himself. This guy's a branding expert.
BLT.
Including one that stuck, BTK.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that might stand for? Clarky, would you like to
Bacon.
guess?
I would have said by the knife, except that he was strangling everyone.
Yeah.
So
No, well, one died by the knife. You're quite right. Bacon, lemon, tomato. Bacon, tomato,
Bacon.
lemon. No, where am I getting L from? That's bloody BLT. That's where I'm getting that from. What does it be? Bacon, tomato,
BTK.
kale.
Kale.
How awful.
Best tequila in can, but can spelt wrongly.
I know. That's why I just think, wow, like he is totally wanting the notoriety. He wants people to know what he's done. He's so proud of it. He feels like he has to draw attention to it. I want the spotlight on this. This is what I'm telling you. How about we give me a name? I'm thinking BTK, and BTK stands for bind, torture, kill.
So it's all the
Which, as he
game.
said, is
Not
his motive.
bacon,
Yeah.
tomato, and kale.
Not bacon, tomato, and kale.
So, but at the same time, or very similar period, you've got 2 other very famous serial killers in America doing this similar kind of cat and mouse
Not easy
game.
to get a headline. Grab some
No.
attention.
So Son of Sam and the Zodiac Killer
Zodiac, yeah.
did the same thing, yeah.
See, I haven't covered those, but when you say they did the same thing, you mean they also called
They
it press?
contacted the press and
Yeah,
they gave
yeah.
themselves monikers, yeah.
All by the
Yeah.
media kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was like a cat and mouse game.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And it's hard, isn't it? Because the way we consume media now is totally different than what it would have been then. And we don't really know on whether things are on, like, we certainly know that, they say historically a lot of Americans weren't getting access to lots of international news stories, but I wonder if within each area and state and whatever else, how much they were being exposed to by, and, we look back at situations and we go, oh, well, that's that entire story. But as people are living some of these things and there's years in between and connections have yet to be made, it's not necessarily someone's going, oh, well, I'm looking at the Son of Sam, whatever else, because we see it as a different story in its totality now.
Yeah.
But it might have been a different time, but yeah.
Yeah.
So he's, basically trying to get some media coverage. What's a man got to do around here to get a little bit of PR?
God.
He's trying to get his influences up. He's trying to get his numbers up.
Exactly.
He's getting exposure. What are
His
his impressions?
followers.
Yeah.
So he needs some followers. He's got a lot on. He's trying to be, this family man, and by all accounts he is. He's also, I would, have to have as a guess, stalking somebody who's going to be his next victim.
Oh,
And-
is he?
Yes. And then he also is keeping, and we don't find this out till later, but he's keeping mementos and taking photographs of himself with the little souvenirs that he's taken from each of the murders.
That's the delightful bit.
Oh, he's
That'd be the
gross.
delightful bit. So there's that. He's
That was the delightful bit.
God.
he's thinking, how am I going to get maximum exposure? I need people. I want to be notorious. I want people to give me the recognition that I deserve. So that's why he's working, overtime by sending letters out to the media to try and get their attention.
And loving himself sick when he sees himself on the news, I bet.
Ugh, it's so disgusting.
He then starts to demand media attention. He sends another letter because at this point, what's interesting is Wichita is really very unsettled. So there's definitely stuff happening, but I guess the media and the police department are trying to keep somewhat of a lid on it. People are scared, but exactly how bad it is. But what he does, he kind of forces their hand, and he basically sends another letter and says, you need to start telling them what's going on, I think. So then it becomes sort of, official. Wichita has a serial killer, and people are terrified.
Wichita's got a serial killer in it.
Yeah.
Wichita.
A woman who was interviewed, who is, she's a newsreader now, but was a young girl at the time. He had hidden in somebody's cupboard for hours before he'd murdered them. He waited for them to go to sleep.
So creepy.
And it was described. He was basically the boogeyman, isn't he? He's that person. He's hiding under the bed. He's hiding things. So he's breaking into people's houses. And at one point, he had spent hours in someone's cupboard. I think that might have been Catherine from memory.
Catherine,
Yeah. And then comes out and attacks them. But that fear of, she said, I still will look in the cupboard. I will still look behind a shower curtain if I'm not familiar with where I am. She said, because it was such a formative part of my life, it totally changed the personality of the town, of the city. People were living in fear, and it was just
Why I won't
totally
go
out of
in the
control.
sea.
Why?
Jaws.
Because there's someone hiding.
Because something terrifying.
That's what I was thinking.
I saw something
There's
at a
been a
formative
man
period
hiding
of
in
time.
there for hours waiting for me to go to sleep.
No, because of Jaws, right? There is something that's terrifying. As you say, the boogeyman. This
Is that
this
really why you
terrifying-
won't go in the sea?
100%, yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, Swanny.
That's all right.
I'll just say that these concepts are terrifying and they get into your psyche and
Yes.
you can't get away from them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
but it's the
Spielberg.
sea and you've still got to jump in.
It's amazing. Everybody that they speak to from, who lived in Wichita at this point, totally,
Freaked out,
yeah, it had
scarred.
massive
Scarred.
And I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before in any of these podcasts, but maybe I'm sure I would have. When I was in high school, we had what was known as the Bulleye Rapist.
No,
And
you
I
haven't
don't-
mentioned it.
No, well, it was quite a big deal in Wollongong where I grew up, and I grew up in the suburb next to that, and it was harrowing. And we had the police come out to our house and in our neighbourhood, and for I don't know how long it went for. It was for a couple of years, I want to say, that this guy was breaking in and raping people, and it was horrendous. He got caught, but he'd get away in drains.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah.
Trains?
Yeah. Drains.
Drains. Like
Drains.
it, Stephen King, it. Ugh.
But it's interesting because it was my formative years. I was a teenager. I talked with my mum sometimes. I say, I remember with the nights we'd be crawling around our house. Someone would think was there with a torch outside. I can only imagine how bad this was. This is just next level.
Did I really think he got away in trains? Oh, I've been delayed for 20 minutes. Oh, well, I'll just...
How's that Friano going for you or whatever it's called?
They're always like, sitting on the platform. What are you doing?
Well, maybe the train service was better in the 70s, but it's certainly not that good now.
What was it? I'll tell you when we don't get anywhere. Was it always a replacement bus service?
Because the trains never run on time.
Oh, no, we're replacing this crossing and that crossing. There's now a bus service. You're right, Swanny.
It's taken me 4 hours to get away. I knew I should have got in the drain.
Oh, gosh. Around about the same time, in a letter, he claimed to be driven to kill by Factor
His
X,
wife.
not the
As a joke.
X, Factor X, which he characterized, right, as a supernatural element that also motivated Jack the Ripper, the Son of Sam, and the Hillside Strangler murders. So you're kind of, you mentioned Son of
X
Sam
Factor.
before.
I mean,
So you
Factor
must
X.
know where
X,
Son of Sam, yeah.
X Factor's probably driven some people who want to kill.
Simon Cowell, we've got a new idea for a show.
We're going to change
Factor
it.
X.
Yeah.
And we go, what is MO? God, I love it.
We've got little Daisy here, all the way from Caroline Springs.
Kill you call that, do you?
She's brought her pet rabbit. She'd just like to show you.
You know how, oh, yuck, before we even go there. But you know how they always have like a backstory, a hard luck story? Can you imagine the backstories?
Oh, God.
Oh,
I had what was it? Stranger Through the Window?
Stranger to the window.
Or Numb Barry what?
Barry Nummer.
Barry Number.
Emma.
That's my backstory to why I'm on Factor X. Anyway,
Oh,
we have to laugh. I mean,
I've got the sorest jaw.
I just love to see the promos for it.
I want to see the UK version.
Oh, at least I'd probably watch those ads as opposed to the current ones.
I want to see the UK version with Ant and Dec presenting it.
Could it
Making joke. Oh.
Yeah, could it get franchised out across the world?
Oh, 100%.
Factor
Yeah.
X. You thought you'd seen everything. Welcome to Factor X.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm getting a
Anyway.
bit warm. Yeah.
Jaw
Big flush,
massage.
darling.
Okay, so he had Factor X, and Simon
Yeah.
Cowell said, that's a no from me.
I think it's us who need to go to him with the concept. So that's all in around about 1978. Things then do go a little bit quiet, and it's not that he didn't plan to do so, it just didn't quite come off. And we know that he intended to kill some others that he was unsuccessful in. One was a woman called Anna Williams, who in 1979, age 63, escaped death by returning home much later than expected.
Oh, goodness.
Denis Rader
Was the
explained
train delayed?
that he was obsessed with Williams, and he was absolutely livid when she evaded him.
She was 63 years old, did you say?
Yeah. He'd spent hours waiting at home, but became impatient and left when she did not return home from visiting friends in a timely manner.
No
Do we know
commitment.
why he was obsessed with her?
No, I don't know about why he was obsessed with anyone in particular. There's no real
But a lot of them have been quite young.
younger. Yeah, I would agree with that. But, that sort of changes things a little bit, and there's a couple of other older ones as well.
Mm.
We now need to jump ahead to 1985. Marianne Hedge was aged 53 and was found on May 5th, 1985 at an intersection sort of just on the outskirts of Wichita.
The woman who evaded him, when
Yes.
did she find that out?
She may never have found that out,
Yeah,
but he
right.
shared that later.
Yeah, right. So at best she found it out
After he was
after
captured.
he was
Yeah,
caught,
yeah.
and she
And
may
I
not have
only-
been around
yeah.
then.
She
or-
might not have survived it, yeah.
I only
Not through
include
him
that
killing her, just her
because
age.
there's such a big leap between the last murder that we know of is 1977, and I'm leaping ahead to, and then he was communicating in 78
Yeah.
a lot, and then he goes quiet. And then in 1985, he murders again. But I just include that because it wasn't that there was no one on his radar in that time. So Maureen Hedges' body is found in Wichita at a cross-section between North Street and North Webb Road.
So out in public.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. Is that unusual? Because I think all the others have been in a house,
It's an
haven't they?
escalation.
Change.
Well, there's a reason for that, and that's
Okay.
because he took her body somewhere.
Oh,
Denis Rader killed Maureen Hedge on April 27. He then took her dead body to his church,
as you do.
On time?
Christ Lutheran Church, where he
It's
was
always
the
the Lutherans.
president.
So he took her to a Lutheran church. Can I just ask for a service? No, I'm
No.
sorry. No, I'll rephrase that.
Please.
Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that at all. I meant to attend
Weekend
a
at
religious
Bernie's.
service,
No,
not to be serviced. Sorry.
no, he had a very specific reason for taking her there, and I shall reveal that. So I don't know if you caught that before, but he took her he took her dead body to his church, Christ Lutheran Church, where
Was he a pastor? Right.
No, he was the
Minister?
president of the church council.
Oh, you've
This
always
is all
got to
getting a
watch
little
this.
bit too
He didn't take her
too
there for a
revealing.
service.
Yeah.
You know what he did? He took her there where he photographed her body in various bondage positions.
No.
Where,
In his
though?
church?
On the
The
altar
church.
or?
I don't know that, but
What does it matter?
Rader had
What's
previously.
this weird? Like, why not do it somewhere
it's so
else?
strange. Well, because this is where he gets off. He had previously stored black plastic sheets and other materials at the church in preparation for the murder, and then later dumped the body in the remote ditch, which was where the cross section of those
Was
streets
she
were.
a member of the church?
I don't think so.
Did he murder her at the church? You said
No,
was that his?
I don't know that
at
he. I
the
think he
house?
took her to the church. How did he kill her
So
initially?
weird.
It's so Weekend at Bernie's.
So rules out the
He
defence
strangled
of
her with
no
his hands.
premeditation.
No, I just think it was in. She might have been the neighbour, actually. I think she was the neighbour because her address on the file that I've got here is North Independence Street, Park City. And I know from watching part of a documentary that the Denis Rader's daughter says, this is the street that I grew up in. It was called Independence Street. So this woman lived in their street. And if that's
right.
it doesn't say here that she's a neighbour, that's who she is. So this woman lived in their
About
street. An
shitting
older
on your
woman.
own doorstep.
Yeah, so she's a 53-year-old neighbour who lives in Independence Street, Park City. Has been strangled with his hands and has been taken so that he could take photographs of her in bondage positions
At the
church, which he'd already prepared to do, and he had a name for it. It was called Project Cookie.
Cookie?
Don't know why. Yeah, don't know why.
Oh,
Jeez.
not BLT?
It's all these food references.
Unbelievable.
I know it's quite remarkable, and I understand, although I don't have particular documents to support it, but I understand that during this whole sort of murderous spree, he continued to correspond with the
Taunt
press
the
and the police,
media.
taunting them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he didn't sort of let up. It wasn't like that had stopped. He was, sending them things, and he liked to send them off to find something. So he'd be like, go here and find this there, and go and find this information, like in the library in this particular book that no one
Is
else
that all
knows.
about making himself feel important and smarter
I think
than
and
them?
clever,
Oh, he's
yes.
much
I think a lot
smarter
of it's got to
than
do with
them,
that.
And also
Yeah,
a
smartness,
game, I
yeah.
think. Like, I think it just kept it all real for him.
Kept it in the press
even
too.
when he
Kept
wasn't
him in the
killing
press.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His next victim, so we're now up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? That can't be right. 9. There's only 11 on this list. There's 10 in total.
Oh.
He then strangles a woman who's 28 called Vicky Lynn. I don't know how you pronounce her surname. It's spelled Wegerle. Wiggly whoop. I don't know.
Wiggly whack.
But he strangled her with a nylon stocking.
Wegler.
And again, it looks like he's broken in there. There's sort of their streets, their home addresses. He's gone into people's homes. And that's just the terror.
Yeah,
Can
the
you
home
imagine it?
invasion is a hard one, isn't it? Like,
Yeah. And what's important to note here is we are now talking about 1986.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a long time, right? In 1988,
Can I
after
ask? I
yeah.
know we've covered a lot of these, but in this whole period of time, what was the evidence trail for the police?
They don't mention anything. I can't find that, so I don't know why that
Like
it's not touched on. You know how like some
where are they?
stories
Like
all about
someone
Yeah.
must be trying to catch this guy.
Yeah,
Like, what does he leave? Is he so
so good that no one
good
notices.
that there's nothing left? There's no leads. There's nothing. Like, it's
I can't find information about that because you know how like some stories are all about that, right? They're
Yeah.
all about the evidence and the things
Trail
that pop up
and
in the trail.
someone's
This is not
chasing
about
and
that.
someone's really good and someone won't let it go and they, but
No, I don't have any names of anyone trying to find anyone or anyone who thought it was them. Have nothing. And remember, he's communicating directly with them, so it's not like they don't know that they've got. This is probably a person correct. Yeah,
Come on, I think that nutter's not the right word to use because I know plenty of nutters and none of them would do what he's doing.
and when you get on the bus, does the nutter sit next to you?
Exactly.
His final victim was Dolores E. Davis, and her body was found on the 1st of February 1991.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was she freshly
and she'd been strangled, with
not
pantyhose.
like she wasn't
From the
in
80s.
a basement somewhere from the 80s.
I don't think so. The thing is, there's no information on her particular, like, you know how there's a lot of information on the first one, then it just starts to become strangled by belt, strangled by rope, strangled by hands, strangled by nylon stockings, strangled by pantyhose. Like, it's sad. That's what you come down to, like this sort of notation in a list. Because you're just part of,
Yeah, that's
what I find really interesting is that he calls himself BTK, right? So bind, torture, kill.
Yeah.
But apart from the Ortega family,
oh no, I think he may have bound some of them up.
It might have bound them, but like not that I'm saying he should have worked harder and tortured people, but I feel like he's given himself this big, persona.
Yeah.
And then he's strangled people.
I feel like if you're going to criticise him, that's not the point to criticise.
Fair enough.
Oh dear God.
Couple of red ones and a verve
I mean, I'm fine with everything he did apart from that bloody acronym. It's just he's got no integrity.
To be something. I agree. Yeah.
Overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
He just loved the idea that he had so many people's attention and had terrified so many people. And one of the policemen said there was a time, he said you would go home and you'd make sure that you had a dial tone because he would cut people's phone lines.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
That's horror movie stuff, right?
That is terrifying.
This horror movie.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right.
And this man say that, like, this big bulky man, he said, there were things that we did, and one of the things that you did was you made sure you had a dial tone. And I went, oh,
that is terrifying.
but that feels like that belongs near your album cover. But we used to have next to our big stereo, we would have the video that we had borrowed from the video library with its big, case and whatever else. And my parents, if they were, hired a horror movie or whatever else, remember A Stranger Calls?
When a Stranger Calls, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
I could never watch any of those things. And I would be terrified looking at the artwork on the sleeve of the video. And when I heard that, check your dial tone, I went, my blood ran cold because I thought, oh my God, I was so terrified of that whole.
Have you seen that
people
movie?
Calling. I would never be able to watch it, but
there's a bit in the movie where they go, we've traced the call, it's coming from your house.
Inside your house.
And you just, I can't deal with this anymore. If you haven't seen it, don't watch it. Just don't.
Have you seen it?
But can you imagine what it must have been like in Wichita at that time?
Yeah.
And over such a prolonged period. And what they said was it would go through stages where, it would be so heightened and it would, level out a bit, and then it would level down and he would go, right, time to get back in the consciousness. I'll send a letter through, I'll do whatever else. And, they were obviously sitting at the radio station, the TV station, waiting for the next communication for him to arrive.
Sounds like Kim Kardashian desperately trying to keep herself relevant.
You think Kris Jenner's on the phone going,
I'd rather Kim Kardashian, though, than this guy, frankly. Like, she doesn't upset me as much.
Our latest range, Skins, not Skins.
Look how big my ass is. Like, that's fine. I can deal with that.
Yeah,
it does not terrify me. Like, make sure you have a dial tone when you get home.
I just wish people didn't give her the publicity.
And okay. But also for the young people who are listening to this who don't know what a dial tone is. Back in the olden days when we had
home phones,
when we had wired phones, not mobiles, and you picked up the phone and had a dial tone, and if it didn't have a dial tone, there was something seriously wrong. Sorry, I just realised we're all old.
Yeah, so if
Thanks
somebody's
for
cut the line
reminding
into
us.
your house, you were totally isolated, weren't you? If someone had cut the line, that's what they would do. If they're going to commit a crime, cut the line.
I always thought I could run outside and use the Telstra phone box outside our house, but that's gone now too because there are hardly any of those.
What's the modern day equivalent of no dial
Your security
tone? If
still
you're
has
scaring
no
little
internet.
kids,
No internet.
Maybe no internet.
No internet,
No
no
Wi-Fi,
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, right.
And cutting things that, or electricity or something like that where you can't get to.
No
Cancelled
connectivity.
your fiber to the node.
You've done what? Dun, All right, Swanny.
Okay.
Have you got
So
another
the last
nut
murder-
punch for us?
This is where it gets good. So in
Did you say
1991,
the last murder and this is where it gets good?
this is where it gets good. So because we're done with the murders now, right?
Oh, we're done. Okay.
We're done with the
Didn't
murders.
Didn't
No more
say
murders.
this is the last murder. This is where it
This
gets
is
good.
where it gets a bit
You
more.
you
this is
come
where I
across
get
as
like,
so
yeah.
proper, and then other times you just like.
They don't
Throw
call me
us under
Rob
a
Swan
bus.
for nothing.
Is this where it
Don't
gets
call you
coming
what, Rob
from?
Swan?
Ruffle bird, R.O.B. Swan.
I think we probably covered that I used to be called Rob Swan, but anyway. So 1991, last murder.
Wow.
And then everything goes quiet, like really quiet, to the point where the next thing that happens is in 2004.
Wow.
Goodness, groceries.
So he's
30 years
60.
after.
But also, just from our
The first
timeline,
crime.
right? I was born in
Yeah.
74.
Yeah.
You were 73. Clarky,
71.
65.
The one to last?
You,
Joke.
you've been eating too much guacamole, Molly.
Righto. So from the time I was born and you two were, like, you were 3, Clarky, you were 1. I was
See if we had
born.
Factor X.
Sorry, I'm not
He
listening to you
starts.
anymore.
He starts.
Yeah.
91, I'm in year 11. You're in year
Yeah.
12. Clarky's 27 and working
91, I
somewhere.
was first year uni. Yeah. What did you say?
Clarky's at uni. Yeah. Oh,
Tony.
91. All right.
Tony, I
You're almost uni.
don't endorse for domestic violence, but
That's-
if a random hand slapped Schmitty across the back of the head, I didn't see
He'd be fine with
anything.
it. I can't do the math. That's all. That's our entire life. Like this is
What do you
this
mean?
caper is happening from the time
Oh,
we're
yeah.
bubbies to the time we are young adults, and then we get to 2004. I'm just
I know.
highlighting how horrendous this time period is.
In slightly offensive ways.
Only to you.
Okay. So 2004, as a sort of a retrospective, the Wichita Eagle, which I presume is the local newspaper, it puts an article,
I
there's
might have
an
thought it was
article
the
in
local
newspaper.
wildlife, but
And there is an article entitled BTK Case Unsolved,
Shouldn't
30
even
years
give him
later.
that shit.
30
Yeah, right.
years later.
And the article suggests, and the common themes at times, it wasn't quite that it had become urban myth, but it had been one of those things that it was part of the backstory. It's part
Like
of
an
the
urban
history
legend almost.
Yes, more urban legend. That's a better way to say it. Of Wichita, people would talk about it. People's grandparents would talk about it and how it affected people at different points, depending on what age they were and whatever else. Whether they were worried about their kids or themselves, or they were single women. So everybody had the way it had impacted them. But the general consensus was that BTK was most probably had been incarcerated for another crime, or he had been killed, or he'd killed
He
himself.
died,
'Cause he'd
yeah.
just gone quiet, right?
Mhm.
And the thing that they say is serial killers generally don't go quiet until they're caught. They just continue to kill. It's unusual that it had been for such a long, long period of time, given what he had done previously.
Joseph D'Angelo is...
Schmitty's still going all right.
Well, no, but, the
caught
original Night Stalker, not the, 11th hour Night Stalker, blah, 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 Erods, Joseph D'Angelo went quiet for 30 years and then got caught with DNA. Remember I did the familial DNA one? That's the guy who murdered and killed people
Was
over...
he the policeman?
Yeah, and I don't know, 14 years or something.
Yeah.
Silent
That's
for
my
30
haircut.
years and then caught. Yeah.
Also not normal.
Right.
Oh, no, not
But
normal.
It does show that serial killers can get bored with their job as well.
That's it. I quit.
Just for now.
Right.
This job's
for now.
killing me.
From that article,
Just don't feel
It's
appreciated.
destroying
Denis
my
Rader then
soul.
initiates a series of 11 communications to the local media.
He did.
from that article, he came back and said,
It was
"Excuse
hang
me,
on a fucking minute. Yeah, I'll tell you.
I beg
So
your
I'll show-
pardon. I
How
think you're
very
fine.
dare
I'm
you."
still alive, and I could kill again. What a load of old shit!
Wow. I've never been so insulted in all my life. Come on, Leonard, we're leaving.
What? Oh my god, that is hilarious.
So
but
not
funny.
to be shut down. So in March of 2004, the Wichita Eagle received a letter from someone, I can't believe he did this, using the name Bill Thomas Killman. BTK.
God. And
Bacon,
Killman.
tomato, kale.
Oh, I know. The author of the letter claimed that he had murdered Vicky. Oh, that's with a difficult surname. Wegerle, Burgley. I don't know how to say that. Sorry, Vicky. He claimed that he'd murdered Vicky on September 16, 1986, and he enclosed photographs of the crime scene and a photocopy of her driver's license, which had been stolen at the time of the crime.
Just in case you don't believe that I'm still around.
Before this, it had not been definitively established that Vicky had been killed by BTK.
Oh wow, she wasn't even attributed to him. God.
Yeah. DNA collected from under Vicky's fingernails provided police with a previously unknown evidence.
Cop that
They had
smart
begun
ass.
DNA testing hundreds of men in an effort to find the serial killer.
And this is
Altogether,
in
more than
2004.
Yeah.
So DNA
Oh,
technology is
Is out there.
massively improved.
It's
Yeah,
massive
yeah.
amounts of epithelials.
I'm glad they kept her fingers.
Nails. No, swabs. They would have had swabs.
You would have.
Yes. In May 2004, a couple of months later, television station
Cake TV.
Cake or CAC. Cake. It's like Carrie Ann Kennelly or something.
Carrie Ann Kennelly TV, Kansas.
I think CAC.
I'm
Cake
Carrie
in
Ann
Wichita received a
Kennel.
letter. Received a letter with a chapter heading for the BTK story, fake IDs, and a word puzzle.
Did they post the word puzzle in the newspaper so that people could try to solve the crime?
Where'd a $50
Something I'm aware of.
voucher?
God, what am I doing with my
On
life?
June 9, a package was found taped to a stop sign at the corner of First and Kansas Roads in Wichita. It had graphic descriptions of the Ontario family murders and a sketch labelled "The Sexual Thrill Is My Bill."
Ugh.
Also included was a chapter list for a proposed book titled The BTK Story, which mimicked a story
AKA
in 19...
Barry Nummer.
Barry the Number.
This guy should have been in marketing or PR. Chapter 1 was titled "A Serial Killer is Born." Who would say that about themselves? This is, he's totally so narcissistic.
From a literary perspective, it's not particularly, original. Is it Nicholas Nickleby or where he says, "I am born"?
Engelbert Humperdinck.
No, in Nicholas Nickleby, I think it is. The first line is, "I am born."
Great
I
expectations.
Or
must.
Great Expectations. It's Great Expectations. A serial.
Not I am Borg.
No, I am
We
born.
are Borg, they say, not I am Borg.
No.
Oh, look, Clarky, just read more. But anyway,
Read my
That was
lips.
subtle.
Next time Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper decide to do a remake of The Star is Born, can they make it A Serial Killer is Born? And Lady Gaga can wear the meat dress.
How's
Perfect.
that song go, Schmitty?
In the shadow.
In the
Oh.
and so in this version, it would be. Oh no! I
you
can't go
there,
there.
it is.
No, I can't. I can't.
As I mentioned, there were sort of 11 communications. Another that he sent was a package was dropped into the return slot of the public library. So he's all over town, dropping things off and sending them off to like 5 little parcels. The one that he left in the library contained more bizarre material, including a claim that he was responsible for the death of a 19-year-old Jake Allen in Argonia, Kansas, earlier that month. But that turned out to be false. So he was starting to get a little bit sort of a bit silly with this,
Bit cocksure.
getting a little bit carried away now.
A
Let's
bit
just
ahead
stick
of
to what you
himself.
really have
Don't
done.
read your own press,
Yeah.
Dal.
When your work speaks for itself, don't interrupt it.
In October 2004, a manila envelope
That's
was
a
dropped
good
into
one.
a UPS box in Wichita. It had many cards with images of terror and bondage of
Oh,
children
God.
pasted on them. A poem threatening a poem.
Home? Who are you?
It's terribly English of you.
All right, you need to drink some wine, girlfriend.
Did you have finishing lessons as a child?
A crowd, a poem.
A poem. Could everybody please be quiet? I'm going to do a poem.
I'm reading a poem in the room. Sorry, Swanny.
I don't think it'd be called a poem in Wichita, do you?
I forgot where we were.
Oh, he actually. Oh my God, a poem. A poem.
It's a poem, doll. It's a poem.
It should be the lead investigator's name because it hasn't even really come up. And he also included a false autobiography with many details about his life.
What's the real word for a false autobiography?
Oh, don't they call it? There's a name for something that people do that. It's like
auto-fictional?
No, it's got a name, a memoir. Isn't it something like that where there's been problems with that where people have said, well, they say it's a memoir because then you've got a little bit of creative license?
Oh, really?
Sorry. Is it like
No, that's right.
I don't know if there's actually a word for a false autobiography, apart from a bullshit.
Just a novel?
Yeah, okay. A fiction. I think we call it that.
A memoir that created a lot of problems a while ago for someone because I feel like it was called A Million Little Pieces or something like that. And he was on Oprah. This is like 10, 20 years ago. And then it turns out that a lot of it was, as you say, bullshit. So it was less autobiographical.
Oh, it was a Bernie Nummer?
I think
Barry
that's a
Nummer.
stranger through the
Barry
window,
Nummer.
that one.
Sorry.
That is a
That's
stranger
a
through the
stranger
window.
through the window.
Yeah,
For sure.
All right. So what happened after he gave the expose of his fiction?
Okay. In December of 2004, so
God.
this is all tracking through 2004, like you can see it's
Yeah.
moved across the whole year. So imagine being in the police
30
department at this
years,
point.
God.
You'll get after 30 years, and he's constantly communicating through 2004.
Yeah.
Constantly,
You know,
like,
when you
and
started your
different things
career, you were like a little constable, and now you're
Yes.
in the detective, and
Lieutenant,
the same
yeah.
case has been going for 30 years.
Who
It's
is this
incredible.
person?
The constable. Oh, don't call them that in the
Rambo.
US, do
Well,
they?
We haven't
Anyway,
heard about them
moving on.
yet, so maybe
It's
there
Lieutenant.
isn't one.
This time, the package was found in Wichita's Murdoch Park. It had the driver's license of Nancy Fox. This time, it had a driver's license. It had her driver's license, which was noted as stolen from the crime scene, as well as a doll that was symbolically bound at the hands and feet and had a plastic bag tied over its head. What a sicko! And now this is where it gets really good. In January of 2005, so we're now talking a year after the Wichita Eagles article has triggered him and prompted him to go, hang on a tick, I'm still around. Look what I've done. I killed this person. Here's my proof. And I killed that person. And I killed this person. I killed that person. So in January of 2005, Denis Rader attempted to leave 2 cereal boxes for collection.
Cereal
He'd
boxes?
notified
Yeah,
cereal
like,
boxes.
You know,
He'd gone to the
Cornflakes.
news station
Cornflakes,
and said
yeah.
he'd left.
Which
He
two?
communicated to the news station that he'd left 2 cereal boxes for the authorities, and one of them was found quite easily on the side of the road.
Special BTK?
And
it's
I
a
think
really
he said, like-
strange thing, though, because, you know, like if I drove past a box of cereal, I just
Serial
drive
killer.
past it. I just would have thought it was
Yeah.
rubbish.
correct, that's
You're
what you're
rubbish.
supposed to. So he was directing people to go and collect it.
Oh,
right.
rightio. Yep.
And he'd contact the
Oh,
news
right.
station and he
Right.
told the news station where to go.
What was in the boxes?
I
think
would
it
have
was
been
just
really
graphic
concerned about a
descriptions
bomb
of
or
what
something.
happened.
Oh, right.
Descriptions and
But this-
evidence to
yeah,
point to the
cereal.
fact that
this-
BTK was still prevalent and still happening
Correct.
and still a thing. Not
But
dead,
the
could
second
kill you
box-
again.
No,
Mm.
correct, and that's why they were trying to communicate to the public. You know, be wary. He's back. You know, and you know,
Yes,
his
he's
brain is
Never
back.
gone.
returned.
That's the worst
Back
part.
Correct.
again.
But the second cereal box was supposed to be behind a Home Depot, you know, their shop Home Depot, one of those mega strip mall kind of shops. However, it was never found. So he
What?
actually had to get in touch with them again.
That would be infuriating.
So
Excuse me.
he chased them up.
Are you
on
not
it.
listening?
He
He
actually
really
was
did.
attempting to get it.
Landfill, please. Like,
So they
seriously.
did exactly that. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they did.
Because you know
Someone
what?
had-
I cannot replicate that evidence. You need to go find it.
It's hard to get good help around here.
It is. So that's how they.
Someone like me
That's
just
what they
picked
did.
it up and put it in the bin, didn't they?
Yeah.
Correct. Someone at Home Depot threw it away, and once they realised that he was then going, did you get the other box or whatever else? He realised something wasn't coming through. So then they went, okay. So then they were able to track down the trash, for the want of a better
We've
saying,
all had to
they
do
found.
that.
Went to the landfill, and how many man
Yeah.
hours of policing was wasted on that? But okay.
But what was important about that? Two things.
Tell me.
First of all, there were several documents inside.
Yeah.
But secondly, because they were able to access footage at the back of the Home Depot, they were able to see in the distance that there was a particular vehicle and a man
Where
walking
is
towards the point.
To Stewie's point, where is the CCTV now?
God damn it. Boom.
Correct.
Technology
And in that
has got
footage,
the bugger.
They were able to trace that the person who had left the cereal box may be the driver of a black Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yes.
So they had that. That
Not
was
a
their first
Nissan
bit.
Cube.
Now this is where it gets very exciting. So I've taken a photograph. This is where it gets really good. This is where it all starts to come together, right?
Yep.
So in the documents inside, he communicates to the police, and this is what the little note says verbatim. Communication as opposed to communication. There's a bit of a spelling mistake there. And he asks the question.
Didn't have
of the
spell
police
check
department.
back then.
He says, can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer, full stop? Be honest, full stop. He's asking the police that.
No, you can. We'll never be able to trace you.
Then he goes on to say,
Asking for a friend.
It's exactly that.
Then he goes on and says, under miscellaneous section 494, comma, and what that refers to is the, I think you call them classifieds in a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the old style thing where you used to say, would like to meet, or I met a girl out, or whatever else, or I'm selling this, or someone's died, those little messages.
If you like pina coladas.
Yes.
Yeah.
So miscellaneous section 494. Then in brackets he says, Rex, comma, it will be okay. That's the message. Then he says, run it for a few days in case I'm out of town, etc. I will try a floppy for a test run sometime in the near future, February or March. So he's basically gone to the police and said, I'll send you something on a floppy disk, but I just need to make sure you can't trace it. Be honest, can I do that?
And
Be
again,
honest.
for our young listeners,
Yes.
a floppy disk.
Floppy disk.
I was wondering if a Barry Nummer fixes a floppy. Again, asking for a friend.
And back in those days, it was 5 1/4-inch floppies.
He's definitely talking about a 5 1/4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the old 3.5. No.
Not 3.5s.
Oh,
No.
no.
But even
Oh, no,
for
'cause they were
our
hard.
listeners, the idea that he's going to,
Not
he's
floppy.
asking the police to communicate with him through the newspaper. He's saying, put like a little ad in, which will say, if it's okay for me to use it, to send you a floppy disk, and you
Yes,
won't be
it's
able to trace
okay
me,
if you use
say, Rex, it will
floppies.
be okay. The police do place an ad in, and it says, Rex, comma, it will be okay. Contact me, P.O. Box, first 4 reference and numbers at 6. I don't know what that means.
Swanny.
Yep.
But Rex, it will be okay.
Do you remember the Metro when we used to get the tube, and the Metro had this little
The newspaper?
Yeah.
The free newspaper?
It's still
Yeah.
going now, I think. And you used to there were little classifieds that were like girl on the, Waterloo line at
that
5
line,
a.m.
yeah.
and wearing this and whatever. I caught your eye and you were hot.
Yes, I do remember that.
That's what it feels like. That's
totally
exactly what it is. But all of those, I used to think, no one's talking to me.
It's so the pina colada song.
So 2 weeks later, on February 16, 2005, Denis Rader sent a purple 1.44 megabyte Memorex floppy disk to Fox affiliate KSAS TV in Wichita. So he
Not
sent
Kate.
it to the police station. Not Kate.
He's
He's gone
changed.
bigger.
Also enclosed were a letter, a gold-coloured necklace with a large medallion, and a photocopy of the cover of Rules of Prey, a 1989 novel by John Sanford about a serial killer.
Disgusting.
Police found metadata embedded in a deleted Microsoft Word document that was, unknown to Rader, still stored on the floppy disk.
Cop that.
And guess what they found? They didn't
Tell
have to find
me.
much.
Something about the Lutheran Church, I'm guessing.
His old resume.
Are you really?
Well, yeah, because she said earlier that the whole Lutheran Church thing has to come back, doesn't it?
Fuck, you're annoying.
The metadata this is my next sentence. The metadata contain the words Christ, Lutheran Church.
Okay.
You're like a fucking psychic.
Because you made the whole fuss about the
Yeah, I
Lutheran
know.
Church
Yeah, no,
earlier.
it's exactly like your psychic, not like you've done it all before.
I know how to
Tony-
format a disc.
Tony, I think she was created thousands of years ago.
I know how to format a disc.
But what was quite cute is the fact that he had only had one document and it was called "This is a test." So he thought he really was testing them. So it said "This is a test," but what was sat behind that in the embedded
He should have
part
brought
was
a
Christ
new
Lutheran
disc.
Church. I did have another note in a different thing that it said it had been used at Park City Library. And the third most important part was that it had been, a document was marked as last modified by Denis. So those three things: the Christ Lutheran Church, Park City Library, and last
Denis.
modified by Denis.
So they go and
all
get
it
his
took
membership card.
was an internet search determined that Denis Rader was the president of the Church Council of the Christ Lutheran Church. When investigators drove by Rader's house, a black Jeep Cherokee,
Bingo.
Was
a
in
vehicle that was in a
the-
Home Depot surveillance, was parked outside. This was strong circumstantial evidence against him, but they needed more direct evidence to detain him. Police obtained a warrant to test a pap smear taken from Rader's
Oh,
daughter.
God.
A pap smear
daughter-
for DNA.
Oh, no.
Oh, you don't want that in your soup. Why can't they
His
just get his
daughter?
own DNA?
They mustn't have his, but they have hers, right?
Yeah, but
so they
get
get
a warrant
subpoena.
to get his.
Oh, that's
Well, they've got a
Right.
warrant. They got a subpoena to get hers. So what they're able to do is by testing her DNA, they were able to show a familiar match.
Do you know what a
Oh.
pap
Wait.
smear is?
I know what it is, but I'm saying why? Why are they subpoenaing hers?
I don't really understand. Familial
Because
DNA,
it's a
DNA, but I don't
Yeah.
understand.
But it's
why
only
they
going to be
can't
familiar. It's not going to stand up
I
in
know.
court of
I don't know
law.
why they
No.
can't just test his, but okay.
Well, no,
Well, I
that'll be
guess
the
they get-
that'll be
they're
the
trying to get
precursor
it-
to then testing
Yes,
his.
they're just trying to get a warrant.
Oh, okay,
So
right.
they were able to make a match between the pap smear and the sample from underneath. To have this in one sentence is a lot.
Too many samples.
For the
right?
sample under Vicky's fingernails.
Too many
Oh,
smears.
so the epithelials.
It's like, oh, give to the field. This indicated
Epithelials
the
and-
killer was closely related to Rader's daughter.
Right.
And combined with the other evidence was enough for police to arrest him. Okay?
Oh, thank goodness.
So that's how we get to
Really?
that point. Yeah. So now we arrive at February 25, 2005 is the day that Denis Rader,
Wow.
AKA BTK, is arrested. He's arrested while driving near his home in Park City shortly after noon. And when an officer asked Mr. Rader, "Do you know why you're going downtown?" he calmly replied,
Downtown,
"Oh, I have suspicions why."
Everything's great when you're.
Wichita Police, the
downtown.
Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and ATF agents searched Rader's home and vehicle, seizing evidence including computer equipment, a pair of black pantyhose retrieved from a shed, and a cylindrical container. The church he attended at his office at City Hall and the main branch of the Park City Library were also searched. At a press conference the next morning, the Wichita Police Chief, Norman Williams, announced to great fanfare, like everyone's
Yeah.
quiet.
Like
The
seriously,
bottom line,
30 years of
BTK is
terror.
arrested.
You want to know
the
he's
whole
down. Yeah.
room erupts.
Yeah.
Everybody is so happy.
I would be. I'd be so relieved. Yeah.
Of course, imagine all of them. I mean, it's just
Awful,
incredible.
yeah.
At first, he was a little bit quiet, and then once sort of the gates opened, he wouldn't shut up.
Really?
He just told them everything. 30 hours of recorded testimony. He
Like non-stop.
Yeah, they just, I don't know if it was exactly
That's
non-stop,
like a
but it
week
was,
of
it
work.
just went
I hope
on and on. The lead interrogator said that they couldn't shut him up once he started. I heard him speak and describe part of it, and I chose not to sort of bring it to the table, but there's some, he tells them the detail of everything, having conversations that he had with the victims, and one of them is about that little girl, Josephine, at the very beginning. And she says, what's going to happen? He says, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be in heaven with the rest of your family by tonight anyway. So, don't sweat it." Kind of thing. Isn't
God.
just things, and no
It's
emotion,
horrible.
totally. Never apologizes, no empathy, just very matter of fact, like he's talking you through.
He's a psychopath.
Yeah,
Dave.
absolutely.
So, did he ever want to be represented
He was, I think, but that was, I think, someone was.
after the case? Because
Court
he's
ordered.
he's
That's
just
it.
bloody
Court ordered.
bleeding it all out to
It was
police.
Probably a
interesting because
court-ordered,
what
yeah.
happened as a result of him confessing to all these murders, all of a sudden they were trying to work out, not just in Kansas, but sort of surrounding states as well, all these unsolved crimes and murders. Was it him? Was it him? Had he said this? He'd confessed it. On March 1, Rader's bail was set at $10 million US, and a public defender was appointed to represent him.
Oh, a public defender.
What a shit job.
It's interesting because it says on May 3, because I've read this, but I think it's got to do with him talking. On May 3, the judge entered not guilty pleas on Rader's behalf, as Rader did not speak at his arraignment. However, on June 27, the scheduled trial date, he changed his plea to guilty. He described the murders in detail and made no apologies. It says, at Rader's August 18 sentencing, victims' families made statements, after which Rader apologised in a rambling 30-minute monologue that the prosecutor likened to an Academy Awards speech. His statement has been described as an example of often observed phenomenon among psychopaths, their inability to understand the emotional content of language.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. At the time, Kansas didn't have the death penalty at the time of the murders. And
so when's his 175 years up? And do you think he'll get released?
In a box.
No. Is he still in prison?
well, it happened. Remember, this only happened less than 20 years ago now. It's what,
He's still in
2000?
prison. Wow.
He's possibly
Yeah.
dead, but 175 years, again, what's the point?
2005.
Who lives that long?
Who wants to live forever? I'm doing a Queen show at the
He's
moment.
currently imprisoned at El Dorado Correctional Facility, which I believe is in Kansas, although
That's
it's
just
now
up the
much
road.
It's just down the road from us. It's got the Victoria's smallest
Smallest
pub.
pub.
What, El Dorado?
Yeah,
El
yeah.
Dorado.
Oh,
No,
there
it's
you
true.
go.
In Victoria.
Also,
Yeah, but not in Kansas. Yeah.
no, you wouldn't want to be imprisoned in
Not
El
in
Dorado.
Kansas anymore,
They all
Toto.
have very nice fences in El Dorado. That's what stood out to us when we went through there.
Would you like to know what? I'll just finish on one thing, which was an evaluation by Massachusetts psychologist Robert
I'd
Mendoza.
love
Here we
to.
go.
I don't know if Robert Mendoza is particularly special, but anyway.
Rough old bitch Mendoza. Rough old bird Mendoza.
Rough old
Rough old bird. Don't be rude, Carla.
R.O.B. wrong. Massachusetts psychologist Robert Mendoza was hired by Rader's court-appointed public defenders to conduct a psychological evaluation to determine if he was insanity-based defence might be viable. He conducted an interview. I like it's an interview. I presume that there's more than one, but after he had pleaded guilty, Mendoza diagnosed Rader with narcissistic, antisocial, and obsessive-compulsive personality disorders. I can be like that at different times. He observed that Rader had a grandiose sense of self. He had a grandiose sense of self, a belief that he is special and therefore entitled to special treatment, a pathological need for attention and admiration. I think that's really important. A preoccupation with maintaining rigid order and structure, and a complete lack of empathy. And that, children, is BTK.
Dennis Rader.
Well, I
Bind,
must say,
torture, kill.
that was delightful.
Radio, you've made your point. I was.
Bloody terrible killer.
Isn't it
That's what
awful
he
that I
is.
just, when I found this, it was, I know that I've used the word delightful, but I was just tickled by all the turns and the fact that
it's an
this guy
incredible
basically got himself
story.
caught in the end. Yes.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it really.
Because he
is.
just couldn't help himself. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than you. I've got all this, and of course, there's a lot of stuff. His daughter, which I didn't want to say at the outset, his daughter has a book which you can purchase on Amazon called "A Serial Killer's Daughter."
I feel sorry for them, the family.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's
Could you
about
imagine
1,000,001 photographs of her and her dad. Obviously, because she shared them, I think, because there aren't very many. I can't find any with maybe
Well,
she with the
must have
son,
done,
but there
yeah.
are none that I can see with the mum. So the mum got an emergency divorce straight away, and she said she knew nothing of it. But it's funny. Like I did read in one article that there were a couple of things that were done that the mum did kind of turn a bit of a blind eye to, and then somewhere else it was like, oh, she had absolutely no idea. And I just go,
She might have thought he was weird, but she didn't think he was going out and killing people.
No.
And look, Joseph D'Angelo, the original Night Stalker, was a bit similar in that his children, his wife had no idea whatsoever that he was this monster. It's possible. I don't blame the family.
It's interesting because what I think she's done, I've read a couple of reviews of the book and how people perceived it. So some people are like, oh, you're incredibly brave to write that and whatever else. And then there's a couple of people that say, I think you're trying to sway the narrative slightly to say, we had such a beautiful, normal childhood. And they sort of think, I think you're trying to paint it in such a positive light that people then, think, don't quite know what happened there. And she sort of says, I've forgiven my dad. But I've seen her, and she didn't believe it to start with. It sounds like the mum was the first one to go, right, I'm out.
Not okay that she's forgiven her dad. I know forgiveness isn't about you. Isn't about them. It's about you. So forgiveness is about trying to make your heart better. But
Yes.
I don't know that he warrants forgiveness, and I don't think
Yeah.
that's something that.
But I think
So
also
she
it's
has
easy to forgive someone of a crime they didn't commit against you.
Correct. How does it? Yeah.
Oh,
So
but if it's that horrific and it's that public, because I think that there is no doubt that she would have suffered as a result of what he did.
For sure.
Subsequently,
And
yeah.
it's interesting that
move
she's
town.
going, I've forgiven him. Maybe I've forgiven him for the crime he caused me, but I would prefer if she was saying, you know what, I could never forgive him. It's interesting. It's a very good conversation.
I think a child's relationship with their father is like if the father's not abusive and none of that comes
Yeah.
into their relationship, I think it's quite easy for a child to say, whatever my father has done outside of my relationship, whatever, is because they haven't experienced it, they can say, oh, well, I forgive that or I understand it.
But there's one thing that I forgot to say in my last little note, which kind of brought a smile to my face, was when they went to court, Rader, he felt particularly betrayed by the police. He couldn't get past the fact that they
floppy
had
disk.
lied to him about the floppy disk. And he
Dickhead.
said to them in court, how could you have lied to me? How could you have lied to me?
bastards.
And the guy said, because I was trying
Oh,
to
that
have
was
it.
honest
such
all the
integrity.
way.
No,
Yeah.
they should have said.
Because it's our job.
They should have said you
Could you
called
have
yourself
lied to me?
BTK and you didn't BTK everyone.
I don't have a sentence because I haven't thought that far ahead. I was just trying to get through the story, and now I'm feeling my mind's a little fried.
I've got one.
Please do.
Mine's going to be the creation of a new TV show called Factor X. Yes. The aim of the contest is to damage BTK in the best way that you can. So, you could think of things like, what are those things called where you whack them till the lollies come out?
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole?
No.
A Mexican...
Pampineri.
Word.
Pez.
No.
No.
Why is it
It's
escaping my
Mexican.
mind?
Bomboniere.
No.
Pinata.
Hey, pinata. So there'll be times.
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, right. Whack a serial killer. That's going to be the.
How sexist.
So no, I think it could be like they come out and they hang him from a string, like he would hang a victim, but also not to the point where he's dead. So they'd have to have a rope around his waist as well around his neck. But then Daisy from Caroline Springs can come out with her stick that she found in her garden and whack him a few times. And the first one to make him burst open wins. And then Simon Cowell can go, "Woo, you've got the Factor X." And then maybe, the next week it can be something different.
Daisy
Anyway.
from Caroline Springs.
And then it can change. It can change all the time.
I don't know why she's from Caroline Springs.
Because it's upper class Deer Park.
It's just the first place that came into my mind. Anyone else?
I've got a sentence for him. So back in the day when he starts just being a miscreant, right?
A
I don't even know
miscreant.
what that word means. It sounds good though. It sounds like you're a
Hurting
miscreant,
animals,
I think.
maybe?
That's your choice.
Yes, oh my Lord. As I said earlier, Clarky, read more.
You drunks are
Anyway.
tough to deal with. Hang on a minute. I think that's us.
I am going to go back to the point in time that I spoke about earlier when you were telling us about how he was abusing animals and being just basically disgusting. So before he gets beyond whatever age it is, I'm going to transform him into a Barbie doll at that point. Because, we're in the 70s, right? Well, no, we're not. We're earlier, but it doesn't matter. And my sister is going to hang him from the lemon tree,
Ah, yes.
cut his hair off
yeah.
and beat him.
Yes.
And he's going to just basically be this plastic
Red Raw.
Barbie doll.
Can he also be like the dog's toy? So the dog chews on the Barbie doll.
After a good beating on the lemon tree.
Yeah.
And he never gets out from this exoskeleton of plastic of Barbie, but, inside it, Swanny,
Yeah, so
for your psychological nut punch
Yeah.
moment, he's fully cognizant. He has all of his
Feeling
desires
all
to
the
have
pain.
and he also wants to have a Barry Numner, and he wants to have a What was the other one?
Stranger through the window.
Strangers through
the window. And all the other sexual things that he wants to have, but he can't because he's got Barbie's hands, and more importantly, he has a general mound like Barbie.
A
So
general mound?
yeah, he has no.
You know, like in the dolls, they just have a little bit of plastic mound.
Is it like a
general
footpath?
mound.
Nobody has that.
Barbie
In the
does.
world of Barbie, they do.
Do you,
right?
Oh.
do you both know that term? Is that what it says on the back of the box?
Well,
Please-
that's a mound.
Please don't violate
both know
Barbie's
it's a
general
general
mound.
Is it a beaver mound or something like that? Or...
Play with Barbie all you want, but please don't violate her general mound.
You can't
just a
violate
general
it. It's
one.
hard plastic, right?
According for Judy.
Right.
He's become a plastic doll hung off our lemon tree, and then at some point he will turn into a dog toy, and probably be buried in a rubble pile somewhere, never to be seen again.
Yep.
But the point is, his soul, his consciousness, everything is in that doll. So he's trapped in there.
Yep.
Before he ruins the life of his children and his wife and others, he's just stuck there. And that is my sentence for Mr. Rader.
Oh, I like that.
There's a couple of things that I've seen just now that I didn't tell you. One was that semen would often be found at the crime scenes, but he didn't have sex with the victims. And then somewhere he said that was out of respect for his wife. So he'd just masturbate as he was killing
Out
them.
of respect for his wife.
Really?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
quite respectful then.
She wouldn't want to hear that.
No.
Oh my God, I'd never read this. He described his preferred masturbation practice as motel parties. He would go to a
that's
motel
not-
room, bind his wrists and ankles and cover his head with a bag.
Well, that's not a Barry Nummer or a Stranger Through the Window. That's a motel parties. What is it? You bind your...
Bind his wrists and ankles and cover his head with a bag. Well, how do you
How do you
How do you
masturbate?
wait?
I don't know this.
Well,
But
first of all, you got to put the bag on
I don't
first.
understand how you do those photographs.
And then what I always do,
When I'm having a motel party.
I missed that.
That was just Tony reiterating
say?
how he did it.
Oh,
Caroline's gone out the room.
Yeah.
I can.
tell us now.
I'm unleashed.
I mean, they call it a motel party. I just call it a quiet night in.
I think he's one of the sickest people we've come across. He used to cut female figures to magazine ads and draw ropes and gags on them. But those photographs, I don't understand how he's been able to get himself that bound up and then be able to take the photo of himself. Do you know what I mean? How did he get out? How did he get up? I don't get
exactly.
that.
Time
I don't
delay.
get it.
It doesn't look like a solo pursuit. This whole thing is like a horror movie where someone's made up. I cannot believe this is real life because all
Silence
the
of the
components when
Lambs.
they come together.
Yeah.
And actually, I haven't seen any of these because I actually thought it'd be better to do the story and then because sometimes I get a little bit caught up in what's fiction and what's character or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're interested, it does say that there's episode 4, season 6 of Law and Order Special Victims is based on this case. Episode 15 of Criminal Minds is based on the Raiders murder. Then there's a couple. I think you guys mentioned Mindhunter, which I don't watch any of that stuff, but there was something
We
there.
did the Criminal Minds, but
Yeah.
All right. I think I saw that. Oh, Criminal Mind. Okay, you saw that. So yeah, obviously it's been the catalyst for a lot of
Fiction, oddly.
characters. Yeah, and yet it's the
truth
it's
is stranger than
yeah.
fiction.
So I don't know. I really don't know. I think I would take away any audience that he has because I think that he really gets off by being able to share what he's done.
Yeah, exactly.
If I could cut out the fact that there would be no one to share it with, it was just him and it was left with him, I think that would take some of the appeal, quite a lot actually. I think that what motivates him, and coming back to sort of it is the general mound principle that Schmitty has introduced, but his sexual sadism is, it's how can I take any sexual arousal or satisfaction away from him so that whole thing just offers you no appeal.
General mound and
Shut
I
it
would
off.
say kitchen gloves. So,
Lorena Bobbitt.
Oh.
yeah, we could do that too.
I don't think I've come up with a particularly strong sentencing, and I do apologise, but it is he's a very sick individual,
oh,
and I just don't know how to counteract that. Do you know what I mean? When someone's that screwed up, I don't think any of the things I'm going to suggest are going to do too much.
Well, maybe the sentence for old Dennis, who's still alive, is that we strip all the photos that we just looked at from Google.
Yes.
We strip everything about his story.
Yep.
You can't find anything on him.
He would love that we were doing this, wouldn't he?
Edit the whole thing out.
We've cleansed him.
Cut.
63 ends after what we're drinking. Sorry, we can't do this because Dickface cannot be celebrating his celebrity any further.
The jury will be instructed
Sorry about that. Short episode.
to ignore everything they've heard up until this point.
Yes.
But seriously, like, strip it all away from him. Take everything away from all social media, all media outlets. There's no record of him.
Brilliant.
There's nothing.
Really, I love it.
Carla,
Perfect,
if you were to cut his nails off at about the shoulders, that would help as well, I think.
Oh, that would help a lot, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, Swanny, great story. And I pay you enormous homage for going for a massively famous and
I hadn't
big
heard of
story.
it, embarrassingly, I'm sorry to say. I'm sure the whole world's going, oh, Swanny, so predictable. But I hadn't heard of it. I found it really intriguing. When I came across it, I was like, oh, my God, the twists and turns. I liked it.
That's what we liked about it, yep.
And as a result, you told the story in quite a different way than I've heard it before. So well done. Thank you. And Clarky, as always, just read more. Just kidding.
Read my lips, doll.
I think he's telling me to piss off.
Yep.
All right. Well, miss you all.
Love you guys.
Miss you
Bye.
Bye.
Ta-ta!
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.